Hello everyone and welcome back. Have you ever felt the sharp sting of betrayal from those closest to you? The people who are supposed to love you unconditionally? Imagine discovering your own family values some grandchildren more than others, going as far as to exclude your children from cherished family traditions. Today, I have an incredible story for you about Jessica, a brave mother who faced exactly this scenario. But Jessica isn't someone to quietly accept injustice. Her journey from pain to empowerment, and eventually sweet revenge, will leave you astonished. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in and prepare yourself for a gripping tale you won't soon forget. Jessica stood in her sunny kitchen, humming softly as she rinsed dishes from breakfast. The day had begun peacefully enough, a rare calm moment in her busy life. Lily and Ben, her children aged 7 and 4, laughed cheerfully from the living room, building castles from blocks and pillows. It was just another ordinary morning, until her phone vibrated on the counter, her mother's name lighting up the screen. Jessica's heart warmed slightly at the thought of Thanksgiving, just around the corner, bringing memories of cinnamon spices, roasted turkey, and long evenings filled with laughter. "Hi, Mom," she answered, a smile in her voice. "Just thinking about you. What's the plan for Thanksgiving this year?" A strange silence lingered, long enough to spark unease in Jessica's chest. "Jessica, honey," her mother began, voice strained with a forced sweetness. "We need to talk about that." Jessica felt her stomach tighten, her fingers suddenly gripping the edge of the countertop. Something was off. Her mother's hesitation spoke louder than words ever could. "Well, you see," her mother continued awkwardly, "we're trying something different this year. A smaller gathering. A quiet dinner, just the adults." Jessica's brow furrowed. "Oh, okay. So no children this year? None at all." Another pause, heavy with an unspoken truth. Jessica heard her mother draw in a sharp breath before replying. "Well, not exactly." Jessica's heart thumped hard against her ribs. Her voice turned cold, cautious. "Mom, what exactly does not exactly mean?" Her mother sighed deeply, as if burdened by the conversation. "Jessica, please don't take this the wrong way. Lily and Ben, they're lovely really, but they're just so energetic. And it's hard, you know? This year, we just prefer if they stayed home." Jessica's pulse quickened, a flush of hot disbelief flooding through her veins. Her hands shook slightly as anger replaced confusion. Her voice trembled despite her best effort to remain calm. "Wait, you're excluding my kids from Thanksgiving? Just my kids?" Another silence stretched painfully before her mother replied, her voice hesitant, almost guilty. "Well, Ethan's children, they're just quieter, dear. They sit nicely at the table. You know how refined they are." Jessica's breath caught sharply. The words felt like knives, each syllable stabbing deeper. Ethan's children, the golden grandchildren praised endlessly by her parents, always receiving just a bit more love, just a bit more attention. Years of subtle favoritism flooded her mind. The dance recitals her parents never attended, the birthdays overshadowed by Ethan's family, the Christmases where gifts seemed unevenly generous toward his children. But this? To so openly reject her own children, it was beyond cruel. "You're saying my children aren't good enough for your Thanksgiving table?" Jessica spoke slowly, each word sharp and deliberate, her voice shaking with contained fury. "But Ethan's kids are welcome? Don't dramatize, Jessica," her mother snapped defensively. "It's not personal. It's just one dinner." Jessica laughed bitterly, the absurdity of the comment cutting deeper. "Not personal? You're telling your own daughter that her children aren't welcome. And it's not personal. I'm sorry you see it that way," her mother replied stiffly, clearly growing irritated. "You and James are invited, of course. Just leave Lily and Ben at home." Jessica closed her eyes briefly, fighting tears of rage. The giggles from the next room were suddenly piercing reminders of her children's innocence. "No, Mom. If my children aren't welcome, neither am I." End of discussion. Her mother sighed, a sound of disappointment rather than regret. "Fine, Jessica. Suit yourself." The line went dead, leaving Jessica standing in stunned silence. She stared blankly at the now darkened phone screen, fighting the overwhelming mix of betrayal, pain, and fury. She had spent a lifetime seeking her parents' approval, bending over backward to fit into their idea of the perfect daughter. Yet, in a single phone call, They had stripped away every illusion of fairness or love. Lily and Ben deserved better than conditional acceptance. Jessica straightened her shoulders, her jaw set firmly. From now on, her children would never be second best again. Her parents had made their choice clear, and Jessica would soon make hers. They would regret pushing her this far. Jessica paced the kitchen floor, her heart hammering fiercely, replaying her mother's hurtful words over and over. She knew she couldn't let this go. The injustice burned within her, demanding confrontation. Gathering her courage, Jessica picked up her phone once more, fingers trembling slightly as she dialed her mother's number. Her mother answered quickly, irritation lacing her voice. "Jessica, really? Is this necessary? I thought we already discussed everything." Jessica's voice hardened. "No, Mom. Actually, we didn't finish. Explain to me again. Why exactly are Ethan's children welcome at Thanksgiving and mine aren't?" She heard her mother sigh deeply, clearly annoyed by her persistence. "Jessica, we've been over this. Ethan's children are simply easier to manage. They're quieter, more refined. It's just a fact." Jessica inhaled sharply, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Easier? More refined? They're children, Mom. Lily and Ben might be energetic, but they're loving, kind, and deserve to be accepted by their own grandparents." Her mother's tone grew colder, impatient. "You're taking this way too personally. We love Lily and Ben, but it's just easier for everyone this way. Ethan's kids know how to behave at the dinner table. It's nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" Jessica echoed incredulously, the rage now impossible to contain. "You have no idea how personal this feels. This isn't just about one dinner. It's been happening for years. Don't pretend you don't know what I mean." Her mother hesitated, and Jessica seized the moment, her voice trembling with emotion. "Every Christmas, Ethan's kids get the expensive toys, the special surprises, while Lily and Ben watch, confused why Santa brought them less. You've attended every school performance Ethan's kids ever had, yet you conveniently forget Lily's dance recitals or Ben's preschool events. Do you realize how heartbreaking it is explaining to my kids why Grandma and Grandpa never show up for them?" Her mother scoffed, dismissive. "You're exaggerating things, Jessica. We have busy lives. Sometimes we can't make it to everything. Yet you always find time for Ethan's family." Jessica shot back, her voice cracking under the weight of hurt. "I've watched for years as you showered them with attention, praise, and gifts. Do you know how much effort I've made, Mom? Constantly hoping that if I did enough, you'd finally see us as equal. But nothing's ever enough for you." An uncomfortable silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. Finally, her mother broke it, frustration clear. "Jessica, I refuse to argue further. We're entitled to our choices." "Choices?" Jessica repeated bitterly. "Your choice is crystal clear. You've chosen Ethan's kids over mine repeatedly. But this time you've gone too far." "What exactly are you saying?" her mother asked sharply, a note of alarm creeping into her voice. Jessica steadied herself, determination surging through her. "I'm saying that I'm done trying to earn your approval. My children aren't second best. They deserve family who love and accept them completely. If Lily and Ben aren't welcome at your Thanksgiving table, then neither am I." "You're making a mistake, Jessica," her mother warned icily, as if scolding a child. Jessica's voice was firm and unwavering. "No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I'm doing exactly what's right. My kids won't be treated like this anymore." Her mother started to respond, but Jessica ended the call, her hands shaking but her heart strangely lighter. She had finally stood her ground, refusing to let her parents' toxic favoritism dictate her family's worth. A quiet strength blossomed within her, a determination she'd never felt before. From this point forward, Jessica knew life would be different. She was ready to create boundaries, to protect her children fiercely. Her parents had made their choice, and Jessica had just made hers, permanently changing their family dynamic. It was painful, yet liberating, and deep inside, Jessica knew her journey had only just begun. Jessica sank onto the sofa, clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles whitened. The house was silent now, her children peacefully asleep, unaware of the family turmoil swirling around them. Jessica's heart was heavy, but resolve hardened within her. She had finally taken a stand, refusing to let her parents belittle her children any longer. Yet, just as she felt a flicker of relief, her phone buzzed harshly, breaking the quiet moment. Glancing down, her stomach tightened sharply. Her brother Ethan's name flashed across the screen. Jessica hesitated briefly, bracing herself, before opening the message. The words hit her like ice water, cold and sharp. "Seriously, Jessica? Mom just called. She said you're making a big scene over Thanksgiving. Can't you just stop being so dramatic for once?" Jessica stared at the message in disbelief, anger blazing hot through her veins. Dramatic? Ethan had always played the golden child, perfectly spoiled, praised, effortlessly favored. But this was beyond anything she could tolerate. Without pausing, Jessica typed back fiercely, each word carefully chosen yet filled with raw honesty. Dramatic? Ethan, they excluded my kids because they aren't good enough. Meanwhile, your kids are treated like royalty. If standing up for my children is dramatic, then I'll gladly wear that label. Enjoy your perfect Thanksgiving without us. We won't be there. She hit send, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Jessica knew she had just crossed a line that couldn't be undone, but for once she felt no regret. This was about protecting Lily and Ben, about finally breaking free from her family's toxic grip. She refused to be manipulated or guilt-tripped any longer. Moments later, her phone buzzed again, Ethan's reply short and sharp. "Suit yourself. Don't expect sympathy from me when this blows up in your face." Jessica shook her head bitterly, placing her phone face down on the table. She was done. Ethan, her parents, they could play their games, but Jessica would no longer participate. She was finished pretending everything was fine, finished silently accepting mistreatment and subtle insults disguised as family concern. Days passed and Jessica began noticing a change. The phone calls started, her parents calling repeatedly, leaving urgent voicemails demanding help with errands, groceries, trivial favors they always seemed to expect. Previously, Jessica would have dropped everything, eager to please, craving their approval. But now she stared at the phone coldly, letting each call ring out unanswered, feeling a strange sense of liberation with every ignored plea. When her mother texted, "Jessica, your father needs you to come fix our Wi-Fi. Please come by immediately," Jessica hesitated only briefly before deleting the message without reply. When her father left a frustrated voicemail about needing groceries picked up, she listened silently, shaking her head as she erased it, refusing to be their convenient solution any longer. Each ignored call, each unanswered message was a small victory, a step toward reclaiming her life and sanity. Jessica had spent years sacrificing her happiness, her children's dignity, all in the futile pursuit of her parents' approval. Now she felt a strength she'd never known before, powerful and unyielding. Her parents' desperation became increasingly evident as they realized their dependable daughter, always so eager to please, had finally snapped. On the day her father called 6 times in a row, Jessica took her children to the park, deliberately leaving her phone behind. As Lily laughed joyfully on the swings and Ben chased butterflies, Jessica breathed deeply, tasting freedom for the first time. She felt lighter, stronger, as if a weight had lifted from her shoulders. Returning home, Jessica picked up her phone, seeing countless missed calls. Instead of anxiety, she smiled faintly, realizing her family's hold on her was breaking, fading away bit by bit. She had drawn the line clearly, severing the toxic bond that held her captive for so long. Jessica knew challenges lay ahead, but one thing was certain: the chains of manipulation were shattered. From this point forward, her choices would reflect her own values and love for her children, not the demands of a family that refused to respect her. The cord was finally cut, and Jessica was ready to embrace a life truly her own. Thanksgiving morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight spilling gently through Jessica's kitchen windows. Instead of the usual chaos, rushing to prepare dishes, choosing perfect outfits, and anxiously watching the clock, Jessica felt surprisingly calm. Her decision to cut ties with her parents had lifted a heavy burden from her shoulders. She watched Lily and Ben giggle at the table, happily decorating sugar cookies with sprinkles and chocolate chips, their laughter filling the house like music. Jessica smiled warmly as Ben proudly showed her a cookie shaped like a dinosaur, his face smeared with icing. Lily twirled around the kitchen in her favorite princess costume, carefree and joyful. This was how Thanksgiving should always feel, Jessica realized, a peaceful morning spent enjoying her children without pressure or judgment from anyone else. Yet just as Jessica relaxed into the pleasant moment, her phone began vibrating insistently on the counter. Her stomach instantly knotted, recognizing her parents' number. She tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the kids' playful banter. But her parents called again, then again, each ring louder, more demanding. Finally, irritation flaring within her, Jessica snatched up the phone, stepping into the hallway for privacy. "What is it, Mom?" Jessica asked sharply, skipping any pretense of pleasantries. Her mother's voice dripped with sarcasm. Oh, so you're finally answering. Enjoying yourself, Jessica? Sitting at home, feeling sorry because you're missing our dinner. Jessica clenched her jaw, fighting to stay calm. Actually, we're having a wonderful Thanksgiving without any drama, thanks for asking. Her mother scoffed impatiently. Enough of your attitude. I called to ask, did you cancel our credit card? Jessica paused, confused. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about, her mother snapped accusingly. Your father's credit card, the one we've been using for groceries, gas, essential things, it suddenly declined. Is this some petty retaliation because of your tantrum about Thanksgiving? Jessica felt an icy chill creep up her spine, realization dawning with sickening clarity. You mean my credit card? The one I gave you years ago temporarily when Dad had surgery. You've still been using that. Her mother laughed dismissively. Oh, don't act shocked. You're our daughter. Helping your parents isn't some great sacrifice. We raised you, Jessica. It's your responsibility. Jessica's pulse quickened with anger, her voice dangerously calm. Let me get this straight. You've secretly charged expenses to my credit card for years without even asking, and you think that's your right? Her mother's tone grew colder, defensive. Don't dramatize it. We took care of you, spent years sacrificing. Paying for a few groceries is the least you could do. Especially after how difficult you've been lately. Jessica's fury boiled over. After excluding my children from your family dinner, making them feel unwanted, you still expected me to blindly finance your life? Are you seriously hearing yourself right now? Her mother scoffed bitterly, ignoring Jessica's words. I can't believe you're making this such an issue. You're so ungrateful. No, Jessica countered sharply, voice trembling with rage. What's unbelievable is your arrogance, believing you can take advantage of me indefinitely. For your information, I did cancel the card, rightfully so. Don't expect another cent from me ever again. Her mother gasped dramatically. Jessica, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious, Jessica responded firmly. Consider your free ride officially over. Her mother sputtered indignantly, but Jessica ended the call abruptly, her heart hammering fiercely. She stood in the hallway, breathing heavily, processing the harsh truth she just uncovered. Her own parents had used her kindness, deceiving her quietly for years, assuming her silence meant acceptance. Returning to the kitchen, Jessica saw Lily and Ben, blissfully unaware, still decorating cookies, laughing and carefree. Watching them, Jessica knew she'd done the right thing. Her parents had pushed her too far this time, and she refused to tolerate their disrespect another second. Today was Thanksgiving, her Thanksgiving, defined not by manipulation or pressure, but by joy, love, and newfound strength. Jessica realized her fight was only beginning. Yet for the first time in her life, she felt ready. Ready to stand her ground and protect her family fiercely, no matter the cost. Jessica stared out the window, gathering her courage as anger pulsed through her veins. Her parents' betrayal felt raw, fresh. A painful wound reopened by each passing moment. With fierce determination, she grabbed her coat and keys, heading out the door to face her parents directly, ready to confront the dishonesty head-on. Arriving at her childhood home, Jessica took a deep breath and knocked firmly. Her mother opened the door, eyes widening in surprise before quickly hardening with irritation. Oh, look who decided to show up, her mother said bitterly, folding her arms defensively. Jessica stepped forward confidently, her voice steady but sharp. We need to talk. Now. Her father appeared behind her mother, face stern, displeasure evident. About what exactly, Jessica? About the credit card, Jessica replied immediately, her voice calm yet forceful. The one you've been secretly using for years. Did you honestly think I wouldn't find out? That I just let you drain me financially forever? Her father scoffed dismissively. You're exaggerating. It's just a few essentials here and there. Nothing you can't afford. Besides, we raised you. You owe us. Jessica's eyes flashed with anger, disbelief painting her expression. I owe you? Is that how you justify stealing from your own daughter? All this time behind my back, spending my money as if it's your entitlement. Her mother stepped closer, voice tense with resentment. Jessica, stop making a scene. Family helps family. It's always been that way. No, Jessica countered firmly, standing taller, refusing to waver. Family respects boundaries and doesn't exploit each other. What you've done is manipulative and wrong. especially considering how you've treated my children." Suddenly, Ethan appeared in the hallway, emerging from the living room, arms crossed, shaking his head as if Jessica was merely throwing another tantrum. "Jessica, seriously? You came here to argue about money? Grow up. Stop being selfish and dramatic." Jessica turned sharply to Ethan, anger blazing in her eyes. "Selfish? Our parents excluded my children from Thanksgiving, humiliated us, and stole from me. But I'm selfish." Ethan sighed impatiently. "They're getting older. Just move past it and help them." Jessica laughed bitterly. "My only responsibility is protecting Lily and Ben, the children your parents rejected. I'm done supporting their games." Her father stepped forward angrily. "You'll regret this mistake, Jessica." She met his gaze fiercely. "My only mistake was letting you control me. No more. You won't benefit from me financially or emotionally. Accept my children or get nothing." As Jessica turned away, Ethan called out sharply, "You'll regret this." She glanced back calmly. "No, Ethan. My only regret is not doing this sooner." Walking away, she felt empowered by her newfound freedom. Returning home to Lily and Ben's cheerful laughter, Jessica knew she'd finally drawn a line, free from guilt and manipulation. At this turning point, I'd love your thoughts. How would you react in Jessica's shoes? Share your feelings in the comments below. Days before Christmas, Jessica was enjoying peaceful moments with her family, believing she'd finally left drama behind. Her husband handed her a troubling envelope from her parents. Inside was a shocking demand, nearly $80,000 for raising her. Stunned, Jessica realized it was another manipulation tactic to regain control. Furious, she drove immediately to confront them. Her mother opened the door smugly saying, "Finally coming to your senses?" Jessica stood firm, waving the letter angrily. "You really think billing me for childhood expenses is fair?" Her father replied coldly, "You chose to abandon family, there's a price." Jessica laughed incredulously. "You lost the right to call yourselves family when you used my children as pawns." Threatening legal action, her father sneered, "Pay up or face lawyers." Jessica calmly tore the letter to pieces. "Go ahead, explain suing your daughter for existing to a judge. Your games end here." Leaving them stunned, Jessica drove home feeling truly free. Hugging Lily and Ben, she knew she'd bravely broken the cycle of control forever. Christmas Eve arrived peacefully until the doorbell rang, shattering Jessica's tranquility. Opening the door cautiously, she saw her parents standing stiffly, holding a large gift. "Merry Christmas," her mother said with false cheer. "We brought something for Lily and Ben." Jessica narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "Why are you really here?" Her father frowned, stepping forward with an air of impatience. "Jessica, enough of this stubbornness. It's Christmas Eve, time to set aside these silly arguments and act like family again." Jessica stood firmly in the doorway, refusing to budge. "Family?" she echoed, her voice filled with disbelief. "You mean the same family who deliberately excluded my children, stole from me, and tried to manipulate me into submission with legal threats? Is that the family you're talking about?" Her mother's forced smile wavered, replaced by a look of cold irritation. "Jessica, honestly, you're exaggerating. We made mistakes, yes, but here we are, trying to fix things. We're offering you a chance to forgive and move forward. Don't ruin this for your children." Jessica's anger flared instantly. "My children," she replied, voice shaking with controlled rage. "You didn't care about Lily and Ben when you deemed them too energetic and unwelcome at your perfect holiday dinner. You didn't care when you betrayed their trust, treating them like second-class family members. Now suddenly on Christmas Eve you pretend to care? It's too little, too late." Her father stepped closer, voice growing sharper. "Enough, Jessica. We're trying to mend things. You're being incredibly selfish, not even considering your children's feelings." Jessica laughed bitterly, incredulous at his audacity. "My children's feelings? Do you know how painful it is explaining to Lily and Ben why their own grandparents reject them? My children deserve genuine love, not this false generosity designed to ease your guilt." Her mother's eyes flashed with fury. "Fine, Jessica. If this is how you're going to behave, ungrateful, stubborn, unwilling to forgive, then don't expect another chance. We tried." Jessica stared at them, seeing clearly the truth behind their carefully constructed facade. This wasn't about reconciliation, it was manipulation. An attempt to regain control through guilt disguised as kindness. Her parents' actions spoke louder than their empty words. "You tried?" Jessica asked, her voice steady, eyes blazing fiercely. "You came here with gifts, expecting instant forgiveness after everything you've done. But love isn't bought with wrapped boxes or pretty ribbons. You never understood that. You're not here for my children or for me. You're here for yourselves." Her father's jaw tightened, frustration etched deeply in his expression. "Jessica." "No," Jessica interrupted sharply. "I'm finished. I refuse your false love and your guilt-filled gifts. Tonight my family, the real family that loves unconditionally, is inside waiting for me. You lost your chance long ago." She stepped back, gripping the door handle firmly. Her mother's eyes widened, shocked as she began to protest, but Jessica had already made up her mind. Without hesitation, she closed the door, firmly shutting her parents out, physically and emotionally. Returning to the warm glow of her home, Jessica felt lighter, freer. Lily and Ben ran over excitedly, wrapping their tiny arms around her. Her husband gave her a supportive nod, pride glowing warmly in his eyes. In that moment, Jessica felt the true meaning of family, a bond built on unconditional love, respect, and genuine care. As the night continued, filled with joy, laughter, and warmth, Jessica knew this Christmas Eve marked not just the end of her parents' control, but the beginning of a beautiful new chapter with those who truly mattered most. New Year's Eve had arrived, promising fresh beginnings and leaving Jessica hopeful for a brighter future. The house was warm with laughter as Lily and Ben eagerly decorated hats and blew festive noisemakers, their innocent joy lighting up the room. Jessica smiled softly, grateful that after all the drama and pain, peace had finally settled into their lives, or so she thought. Just as the clock neared 8 o'clock, a sudden knock at the door jolted Jessica from her moment of calm. Her stomach twisted sharply, an instinctive dread tightening her chest. Who could it be at this hour? Opening the door cautiously, Jessica froze in disbelief. There stood her parents, their faces stern and unforgiving, with Ethan and his wife standing just behind them. Their unexpected arrival, cold and calculated, felt like a carefully orchestrated ambush. Her mother broke the tense silence first, voice devoid of warmth. "Jessica, we need to talk immediately." Jessica stood firmly, refusing to step aside. "There's nothing left to discuss." Her father's voice cut sharply, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "Actually, there is. We've spoken with our lawyer, Jessica. We're here to inform you that we intend to pursue legal action for grandparents' rights." Jessica felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath her. The audacity of their threat left her momentarily speechless. Ethan stepped forward, a smug expression on his face, clearly enjoying Jessica's shock. "You forced our hand, Jessica," Ethan said coolly. "Mom and Dad have every right to see their grandchildren. Keeping them away over petty arguments is unacceptable." Jessica took a deep breath, steadying her shaking nerves. She refused to let them see any fear. Instead, she raised her chin, meeting Ethan's gaze head-on. "Petty arguments? You've repeatedly belittled my children, excluded them, and tried to manipulate me into submission, and now you're threatening legal action to regain control? This isn't about love. It's about power." Jessica faced her parents firmly in the doorway, her voice calm yet resolute. Her mother glared coldly, stepping forward sharply. "We're family, Jessica. You're complicating things unnecessarily." Jessica shook her head slowly. "No, Mom. I'm finally seeing clearly. If you pursue this in court, I suggest you reconsider carefully." Her father scoffed arrogantly. "Empty threats won't scare us. Our lawyer assures us we have grounds." Jessica calmly interrupted, holding up her phone confidently. "They're not empty threats. I have every message, voicemail, and email. Every insult, every manipulation. If you push this further, I'll gladly show everyone who you truly are." Silence hung heavily. Ethan's smugness faded into uncertainty. "You wouldn't," he muttered. Jessica smiled confidently. "Try me. I'm done playing your games. Your reputation doesn't matter to me. Only my children's well-being." Her mother's composure cracked. "Jessica, think about the family's reputation." Jessica remained firm. You chose your path, I've chosen mine. Leave now or face the consequences. Realizing they'd lost control, her parents exchanged defeated looks. Ethan hesitated briefly before following them quietly into the night. Jessica closed the door, heart pounding with victorious calm. She had finally reclaimed her life, free from manipulation, filled only with strength and peace moving forward. Her parents exchanged tense glances, uncertainty visible for the first time. Ethan sighed heavily, shoulders slumping, as the reality of their defeat finally sank in. Jessica watched quietly, knowing they finally understood. They had lost the power they'd once so ruthlessly wielded. Slowly, reluctantly, her father turned away first, avoiding Jessica's gaze, signaling surrender without words. Her mother hesitated briefly, eyes filling with a bitter resentment that Jessica knew would linger. Finally, Ethan, looking defeated and embarrassed, quietly turned and followed suit, leaving the porch in heavy silence. Jessica watched as they walked away, a triumphant strength surging through her chest. She waited until they disappeared into the cold night before firmly closing the door behind her, breathing deeply in relief. Inside, her home felt warmer, brighter, free from the shadow her parents' control had cast for so long. Lily and Ben ran toward her, laughter lighting their faces, unaware of the victory their mother had just achieved. Jessica hugged them fiercely, her heart lighter than it had been in years. As midnight approached, Jessica stood beside her husband, watching the clock tick toward a new beginning. She knew this new year would bring genuine freedom. Freedom from manipulation, threats, and fear. She had bravely confronted those who had held her captive emotionally and financially for so long, and finally, she had won. Tonight marked the start of a new chapter, one defined by strength, self-respect, and unconditional love. Jessica smiled softly, feeling truly powerful for the first time in her life, knowing that she'd fought for her family, her dignity, and won decisively. The afternoon sun gently warmed Jessica's porch, casting golden rays over the lawn as Lily and Ben chased each other through clouds of bubbles. Their laughter echoed joyously, carefree and pure, unaware of the emotional battles their mother had fought fiercely on their behalf. Jessica watched them with a profound sense of peace, smiling softly as she leaned back in her chair, finally feeling a deep, satisfying freedom she'd longed for all her life. Her husband joined her, handing her a fresh glass of lemonade. Settling into the seat beside her, he reached out, squeezing her hand warmly. "Feels good, doesn't it?" he remarked quietly, following her gaze toward their children. Jessica nodded slowly, her smile widening. "Better than good. It feels incredible." He chuckled lightly, glancing at her with a thoughtful expression. "It's strange, isn't it? The silence from your parents these past few months. I never imagined they'd actually leave us alone." Jessica exhaled softly, her expression calm yet reflective. "I think they finally realized they'd lost control for good. The threats, the manipulation, it all stopped when they saw I wouldn't back down. They never expected me to truly fight back." Her husband leaned back, thoughtful eyes studying the distant trees swaying gently in the breeze. "Do you think they'll ever try again?" Jessica shook her head confidently, determination shining brightly in her eyes. "Honestly, no. They pushed as hard as they could and still lost. I made sure they understood clearly. Any further attempts would cost them dearly." He squeezed her hand reassuringly, pride evident in his voice. "You were incredibly brave, Jess. You stood firm even when they threw everything at you." Jessica smiled warmly, gratitude flooding her heart. "I did it for Lily and Ben. Seeing them now, so happy, so free, it was worth every painful moment. They're finally growing up without feeling unwanted or second best." Her husband nodded thoughtfully, his eyes gentle. "They'll never experience what you did. You've broken that toxic cycle, Jess. That's a powerful legacy you've created." Jessica's eyes softened, feeling the truth of his words deeply. "For so long, I thought their approval mattered more than anything. I chased their acceptance, convinced myself things would change. But now, looking at Lily and Ben, I realize real family doesn't make you earn their love. Real family gives it freely, unconditionally." He smiled knowingly. "That's exactly what we have right here. True family chosen by us, built on love, respect, and trust. No one can take that away." Jessica felt tears of relief and happiness blur her vision. The heaviness she once carried had vanished, replaced by an empowering sense of calm. She leaned forward slightly, her voice firm with conviction. "I'll never let anyone make my children feel unwanted again. They're perfect exactly as they are, and I'll always protect that truth." Her husband's eyes filled with pride, admiration clear in his expression. "I know you will, Jess. You've already proven it." Jessica sat quietly, allowing herself to fully embrace the peacefulness of the moment. Months ago, such tranquility had seemed impossible, overshadowed by her parents' toxic demands and manipulation. Yet here she was stronger, braver, completely free. The power she'd reclaimed had reshaped her entire life. As Lily and Ben ran laughing toward her, wrapping small arms tightly around her neck, Jessica felt a profound sense of gratitude. She hugged them close, savoring the purity of their happiness. "Mommy, we love you," Lily exclaimed brightly, pressing her cheek against Jessica's shoulder. Ben grinned, giggling as Jessica ruffled his hair affectionately. "Best mommy ever," he declared happily. Jessica felt her heart swell, peace radiating deeply through her entire being. She'd fought fiercely to protect them from pain, from rejection, and finally she had won. Their love-filled home, untouched by manipulation or cruelty, was the proof of her victory. Watching them dash back across the lawn, Jessica leaned back again, savoring every second of this newfound freedom. Her journey had been difficult, the battles intense, but each struggle had forged within her a strength she'd never known existed. She now understood that true victory wasn't found in pleasing those who sought control, but in fiercely protecting the ones who mattered most. Jessica smiled softly, breathing deeply in the warm afternoon air, content in the knowledge that her family was finally safe, secure, and endlessly loved. This, she realized with absolute certainty, was the true meaning of freedom, and she intended to cherish it forever. Thank you so much for listening to Jessica's powerful story. Remember, no one deserves to feel unwelcome or undervalued, especially by their own family. What lessons did you take away from this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts and personal reflections, so please share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories coming soon.